This is Europe's most expensive fish. This is a wild-caught turbo. Prized by kings and emperors, it is a member of the flatfish family like halibut and flounder, but much more expensive. You can tell a turbo from some of the other flatfish by their distinct diamond shape, and if you run your finger over their skin, they've got these bumps over their skin that are unique to this fish. Wild turbo is so expensive, you rarely see it on a US market. The only time you'll see these guys in the US market is often at a very high-end restaurant where you're spending $40 to $60 for a small 4-ounce portion of this fish. What's more common in the US market are farm-raised turbo. Because it is such a highly sought-after fish, they started farm raising them to make a more affordable option. Whereas these wild fish are insanely expensive. My cost as a buyer, wholesale, was $26.35 a pound. Now that sounds expensive, but I don't think you guys can wrap your head around how expensive that is for a displayed fillet, or how expensive that would be for a restaurant to put on your plate. Let's find out. All right, we're gonna weigh these fish up individually, tear that bucket out so we're starting at 0, and go ahead and throw that guy in there. 9.14 pounds, that is a massive turbo. And then we got one more. Between both those fish, we've got 17.98 pounds, almost 18 pounds. These two fish alone cost me $473.77. That's insane. And that's the whole fish. That's not the fillet cost. We're gonna figure out the fillet cost by filleting them and reweighing them. Now, when filleting your turbo, like any fish, you wanna make sure you get every drop, but especially when you're paying this much per pound for a fish. Like many other fish, you've got meat that come all the way behind the head here, and you don't wanna miss out on that. And you can see that there are some nice cheeks in there too, but they don't weigh very much. This is gonna be the bulk of the weight, and this is how you're gonna make the most of your money back. You wanna cut all the way into the forehead. So when you're filleting these guys, you wanna make sure your initial cut comes all the way forward like this. Then we're going to rest your knife right on that skeleton as you twist out and push forward. What we're gonna do right here is just get a nice initial cut all the way down. These fish have giant ribbons, which are fat pockets that run around the outside of the fillet. You wanna make sure that you get to the other side of those ribbons before you make any deep cuts. So right here is where the skeleton actually starts. These are just little cartilage pieces that the ribbons are laying on top of, and it's not strong and won't support a nice long motion. So you wanna make sure you're on top of that skeleton first before you make a nice confident motion just like that, going to the center spine. Go to the bottom of the tail. Now use just the tip of your knife to go to the top of that spine. Tip of the knife, base of the ribs, angle it slightly up, separating the connection the pin bones make to the ribs. Now we're going to dip our knife on the other side of that center spine, which is nice and tall. We want to make sure that you're not losing out on meat on the other side, and you have a good hard angle sliding down that center spine. Now we're just going to cut away the rest of the fillet. And there is your beautiful, insanely priced wild turbo fillet. This right here are the ribbons I was talking about. Those are fat pockets. It's absolutely delicious. Now we're gonna flip it over. This is our thicker side. And just like the other side, the meat comes all the way behind the head there. So we just wanna make a good cut behind the head, just like that, not missing out on any of that delicious wild turbo meat. Now we're gonna rest our knife right on the skeleton, twist our knife, and slide all the way down, just like that. All right, we wanna make sure that we're on top of the skeleton, not where the ribbons were, just like that. Once we have the skeleton exposed, we can make our nice, long, confident cut, just like that. Resting your knife right on the skeleton, come back around, gently go to the top of that spine. That way you can dip your knife on the other side and not lose any of the meat behind that spine. And that's how you pick the bones clean on a turbo, but we're not done there. We're gonna use these scissors and we're gonna go ahead and cut right there, cut away those gills. Good snip right there, and a good snip right there. And that whole collar portion comes right out. We're gonna trim this up and make sure we don't waste any of the delicious meat around the collar as well. Up next, we're gonna cut these cheeks out. They're tiny, but again, we paid so much money for this fish, we're not losing out on any of it. That's a delicacy right there. You can feel with your finger around the outside of that bone where the cheek meat starts. You want to dip your knife right in and start to outline, making sure the back of your knife is resting on that bone. And then we can use the rest of this turbo skeleton to make a nice stock or fumet. All right, I get this off to the side for now. I'm gonna fly through this other one. So that way we can get to weighing up the fillets and seeing what the actual boneless, skinless fillet cost is wholesale to a market. Turbo has been considered a luxury fish for centuries, particularly in Europe, where it is highly valued by royalty and aristocrats. The ancient Romans were among the first to prize turbo for its delicate, firm white flesh and mild, slightly sweet flavor. In fact, Roman Emperor Domitian in 81 to 96 AD famously held a banquet just to celebrate a massive turbo. Even today, turbo is frequently featured in Michelin-starred restaurants, reinforcing its reputation as a fish fit for royalty. All right, now we want to skin and debone our beautiful turbo. There are no bones inside of this fillet except for a couple of pin bones right here up front. We're gonna start skinning by getting a good grip on the tail, starting at a hard angle. Make sure you keep a good grip on that skin while you gently scrape the bottom of the skin with your knife. Little wiggle all the way forward, a gentle push for that last little part, and you've got a beautiful skinless turbo fillet. These ribbons right here are a delicious part of the fish. I like collecting all of them when I'm filleting a bunch of flatfish and then turning them into fried little balls. I've heard people really enjoying them for sushi. When I'm doing a local fresh flatfish like a flounder, if it's hours out of the water or a day out of the water, I'll eat those ones raw. These ones I'll cook. You can feel with your finger where the last pin bone is. You want to go just past it and you want to outline right next to it. We want to do that on the other side as well, getting as close to that bone line as you possibly can. So after those two cuts, you can lift up the whole pin bone line and cut it up right at the base. And you can see the angle these bones go at. When you find the last pin bone, you want to go an inch past it because as you can see, the last pin bone's right here, but a fragment of the bone is going all the way down here, and you don't want bone fragments in your fillet, so you have to go past it. When you cut it off at the bottom, there are no tips of little pieces of bone in your fillet. Which, by the way, we do not carry this overpriced wild turbo at our seafood market. Our main focus is on hours out of the water, locally caught fish by hardworking local commercial fishermen. I got this fish in for a special order for a customer, and we're doing a video on it to tell you guys all about the fish. Before giving it to our customer, we're gonna wanna shave off all of this membrane and any yellowing that is from the stomach. We don't wanna lose out on any of the meat, so we're gonna gently slide underneath. Now, there's our first boneless, skinless fillet. This was from the brown side, so it is going to be heavier. So this is more than 25% of our 4 fillets. Make sure we're at 0, plop them right in there. We're at just under 1.75 pounds. And now we're gonna skin and debone the rest of them and see what our fillet cost is for these 2 fish. Fillet number 2, fillet number 3, and just like that, fillet number 4, with a total of 6.48 pounds of boneless, skinless turbo fillet. So those fish whole at $26.35 a pound came out to $473.77. Our final weight on the fillets was 6.48. So 6.48 divided by 473.77 equals $73 a pound. Wow, that's out of my budget. I guess that's why only royalty can eat this fish. Thanks for watching. Have a killer day.